Hello, hello. We are back again for another this is I guess an other ink Thursday. I almost said wet ink Wednesday. This is an other ink Thursday. I'm talking to Jessica Geyer, who is game designer, a educator, and a current president of the IGDN. So welcome, Jess.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Yeah.
Always good to talk to you.
Yeah. I meant to say this before we started actually recording, but like you're not just like somebody that I called on the internet to talk about a zine. Like you're like I know you, right? So
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is like I meant to establish like I don't know how professional are we going to be? Like we could be informal. How about that? We could be
Okay.
professional but informal.
I don't believe in professionalism. So what does that even mean?
Sure. I especially in like indie RPGs, like professional is like don't be a jerk, don't be a big jerk is like about as professional as people get, I guess.
Yeah, and I think like on the internet, like on the online medium too, we like at least me, like I grew up having the internet be like very informal, very
Mm,
casual kind of thing, where everyone is on the same playing field as everyone. It's only been very recently, like very, very recently for me that being in like a business kind of setting online, like and having to like change your affect has been a thing
mm.
for me.
Ooh, so this is something interesting that I want to hear more about. Like, is it related to games, or is that like is it the other stuff you do? Because you're involved in a lot of different stuff.
Well, I'm really particularly thinking about my profession as an educator,
Mm.
especially with online school. You have to be a much more formal, like quote unquote professional,
Yeah.
like kind of conversation and the way that you appear and the way that you speak to other people. Certainly after, school went online, but it has happened more recently online for game stuff too. Although even that, like it's still the indie RPG scene also is very kind of casual in general, which I
Yeah.
think is okay. I think that's good.
When I first started going to cons, I was like, I'm going to be the guy that wears a suit to the cons. And I did that like twice. And then I was like, nobody else here is doing this. This is not, this is not a vibe that I'm going to be able to like maintain.
No. Do
There's people
you
who do
own a
it.
suit? I've never seen you in one before.
I do own two suits. And when I say I wore a suit to the con, I meant like I wore the jacket of a suit
Mm.
over
Okay,
my
that's
like
pretty cool.
uh over my like we got when we first started we got polo shirts that had like our little logo on them. So I had like the polo shirt and the suit jacket, and I was like, I'm here to talk about my diesel punk sky pirate anthropomorphic 1930s game, and people are like, uh-huh, I bet you are.
Oh my gosh. Well,
So,
okay, Diesel Punk, you wearing a suit jacket over a polo shirt is kind of on par, but if it were a suit jacket over a t-shirt, that would have been even better. But I feel like
well,
the business professional attire of a convention now is like for some reason a Hawaiian button-down shirt and cargo pants.
I
It's
mean,
that's all I
see,
see.
you're not wrong. There's definitely like I think I was trying to distinguish myself from like this we've gone way off topic
Sorry,
here.
that was
No,
my
no,
fault.
no. I've allowed it to happen. This is what I'm saying about like we're just gonna be free for, but like there's such a look of like a a person who looks like I do, who's wearing like flip-flops and a graphic t-shirt and like a cargo short. That three-part thing. I'm like, no, I don't want to look like all of those guys. I'm going to look like I'm here to talk about my silly uh squirrels versus chickens game in the 1930s, fake 1930s, but also I am wearing a suit jacket, so you must take me seriously.
Mhm.
But I think I've developed a different, like I wear we have shirts now that have like we have t-shirts now that have the company logo on them, that have the different product lines for the game, so then we wear those. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But I don't know. Made the suit. I the suit comes back, right? Because we go to fancy Indies, right? So
Right, of course. It's fancy Annie's now. for
It's
everyone
fancy innies now.
who's
Yeah,
listening, if you don't know.
yeah. If you don't know, the innies has been declared fancy, and there was a red carpet there last year. Even a bit
That's
of
true.
red carpet was put on the floor.
That's true. That is true. There was a
Okay,
square of red carpet.
it was
It was
oblong. It
longer
was
than it was
oblong.
oblong.
It was oblong. All right. Jess, I want to talk to you about games, specifically, and specifically the games you make. And so I want to know how you first got into like making games. Like I always love to hear people's route into like the industry, right? And so what's yours? How did you decide that this is something you were going to do with the precious hours you have on this earth?
Yeah, they are precious, and I think that's why I do it because I really
Mm,
enjoy games. I've been playing games of some sort since as far back as I can remember. One of my earliest memories is playing Risk with my dad, and like playing other kinds of strategy games with him. I really credit him with making me a nerd. And my mom worked in a bookstore when I was a kid too, so it was destined. When she wouldn't let me buy Magic cards, which is probably a good thing when I was like 4. But
four is pretty
they
young.
yeah, and then I started writing, doing a little like freelance adventure writing for some friends of mine who wrote games. I really enjoyed that. I always liked writing. And I never thought about making my own games until I went on a cruise with my husband, my then boyfriend at the time. We went on a cruise, well, fiance at that cruise. Actually, we got engaged on that cruise, and they were
Nice.
like, we could write a game. I think it would be pretty fun to write a game, right?" Like, and I started thinking about that, and then we got like a solid idea for a game. Like, we had some ideas for games, but they were like too big.
Mm.
They
See,
were they were too big,
this is good. You should the first game should be small
right? Well, and then we
or
so it
appropriately
it
scaled.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and we did get some good advice on that. So I guess, like, what got me into it was being around people who were talking about making games, were talking about how and, like, all the advice that they would give is, like, just you can just do it. No one is
Mm.
really stopping you.
Yeah.
I am a normal person. They are not like, I don't know really anyone in this industry who, like, like, no one's in this industry and is a millionaire, a billionaire. No one's doing that. You don't really, I mean, yes, there is, like, a lot of network connection that you need to have, not necessarily need to have, but that helps you in the industry too, but it's not like, "Oh, yeah, this person is famous for being the child of" okay, with a few exceptions, this person is I'm thinking of exceptions, but, like, there's no nepo baby really of
Yeah.
TTRPGs. These are just normal people who really like games and wanna create a game that they like, and I've always liked to be creative. I've always liked to write, and it seemed kinda natural. I don't know, there's not like a really one big moment,
No,
just a
yeah.
series of
It,
moments since
it's a
literally
series of
my
moments.
childhood.
It's
Yeah.
it does seem like yeah, I don't know. Like I've heard you talk on other shows that I either ones that I've been on with you or just hanging out with you or whatever, talking about like your long running campaign and like then you know, like you said, beating your then boyfriend and fiance husband, you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I you two are such a partnership in wet wannabe games. I should have put that in your intro,
Yeah.
right? Like wannabe games is the name that you publish stuff under. So like the two of you together are like kind of uh, I don't know, a force. I don't know, like you're quite the force, right? As far as like creative, like pushing each other. I think. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. That's kind of what I wanted. Part of one of the things I wanted to ask you about like uh, wannabe games coming out of the gate. As far as I had ever heard of you was Moonpunk, right? So like and that's like a very normal first publication kind of thing. Like it's a sizable book. It's got art in it. It's you guys wrote it. The two of you wrote it, and it's quote unquote like a real game, right? That has
Mhm.
like a spine. It's not just a folded it's not a folded 24 pages or whatever, right? It's a substantial product. And then like to see you guys, and I don't remember what year that was. It was at least like 2021, I think, maybe a little bit before, but then like Means of Magic is like it's like a hardcover book and it's much bigger and it's got color in it. It's like the you made such a big jump in like, and so that's what I'm asking about. Like, is it that that Wannabe Games is like kind of reaching for that, or and pushing each other to go further in that way, or is it sort of and like more than the sum of its parts kind of thing, or is it like because I mean again I'm not giving you the time to answer, but like because you could say like we're just going to make zines because you both love zines also, and that's
Mhm.
ostensibly what we're here to talk about is your zine, your small game, but like I don't know, like what is the choice behind like the going from small to big, and then like what's that road been like?
Well, Moonpunk wasn't actually our first game. It's just the first game that ended up in print for realsy.
That's what I meant,
Alex
but
and
yeah.
I, yeah, Alex and I started by we were basically doing game jams together online where we would discuss like, oh, let's decide on a game concept, make a game around it. And we did that weekly for a while. We made the game within an hour on live on Twitch. And then I went through it, put some layout onto it, and shoved it online for free. Um, really, is
Such a
there?
crucible of uh working together, I'm sure.
It was, yeah, yeah. It's not like we always agree on everything. We are both very opinionated people. We get along in many respects. We're married. We have to. Um, and but we do really push each other, I feel like creatively. The problem is that we're both chaotic. We're both extremely chaotic. So the way you introduced this made it seem like we've had this grand plan or that we have this big trajectory. No, we don't really. We kind of let our passions take us where they will. I do find it kind of funny. Alex is the one who makes sure that I get things done. He tells me like, okay, you're gonna have to actually sit down and finish this. You can't just like do this next project, like slow it down. Don't try so much stuff. Um, and without him being there as my partner in game design, I would probably have never finished a game, like a real game like Moonpunk, a real game, quote unquote game. So we're probably like Means of Magic. It was really fun. I do like I it's not like we're gonna keep going and going and making bigger, better books, more professional books or anything like that. I don't think that there is a straightforward trajectory for anybody.
Yeah.
I think that I really enjoy certain types of games. I really enjoy a concept of a game, and whatever that ends up looking like, whether it's something silly and small or silly and big or big and silly. Whatever order you want to put it in.
Right, right.
I don't think that there's necessarily a trajectory, and I don't think that um I wouldn't want to put that on us either as a company.
Yeah.
Alex and I have talked a lot about doing a lot more smaller stuff too, like a lot more scenes
Yeah.
rather than like a book like Means of Magic, even a book like Moonpunk. It's a lot of work, it's like a year of development.
Yeah.
So and I have way more ideas that I want to get on paper than will take a year of development for. So,
Oh, that
um,
is, yeah, that is, I think that's sort of like that's the normal, right? You go
yeah,
to it's been a couple weeks, a week or so since Brandon and I were at PAX Unplugged, and like coming back from PAX Unplugged, it's like, well, now we've got 7 more games that we want to make, just that time of like we're
right,
just off of the con, now we're in the car for hours just spitballing, and it's like there's too many, we can't make them all,
right.
um but yeah, but what a great, I guess, place to be, if you've got too many ideas, like you get to hopefully do the best ones.
Yeah. I mean, for us too, it's not like I'm not trying to make a living right now off
Mm,
of writing games. If one of our games flops, it's not gonna break us. We don't put a lot of money. We don't put really any money of our own into these games. All of our
yeah.
games have been very low budget. So we don't need to feel that pressure of, oh, we have to put out a game that's gonna make
Hmm.
this much money, that's gonna be this big, that's gonna do whatever.
Right,
We have a lot of freedom in being very indie and being very punk in that way.
right.
That we we are able to just chase that creative spirit a little bit, which not everybody has. Not even everybody in the indie RPG industry has that option. Like a lot of people are trying to do, trying to pursue a more, for lack of a better word, a more capitalist dream, which is like, go for it. Good for you. You're never
Right.
gonna.
Well,
we can talk more if you get to like WotC level, at which point
oh,
maybe.
I mean, we're all motes in their eye at this point. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot to say there, and I think we could keep going for a while in that direction. I appreciate you sharing all that. I guess it's sort of like it's the I like what you said about like chasing a passion, right? Where it's like if you're in because so many people like that's one of the big takeaways that I had. One of my own revelations like this year has been like I've been working harder this year on like my stuff than I have in like any previous years that I've been doing this, and it's still like quote unquote not enough to make it like again. I'm putting quotes around all these things because
Right.
it's like I can't pay myself a living wage even working as hard as I've worked this year. um because all of that money goes into the production of the physical items, and then right, it's not even having the success that I've enjoyed. It's not like yet possible to do that, but it is. So if you don't have that as your goal,
Hmm.
then yeah, you're free to do whatever you want, in a lot of respects, as long as you aren't losing money, as long as you break even, like, or maybe put a little bit in
Right.
your pocket every time, you can keep going with it, which is a great place to be. So that's great. Keep up the
Yeah. We make enough in like random sales to pay like a bill a month, which is pretty cool. That's way cooler than I would have thought going into things. Um yeah, I mean it's just it is really tough. I actually was just editing a blog post of James Kerr's for the IGDM blog, and he was talking about like this balance between, you know, pursuing your like this is an industry of passionate nerds. It's not an industry really
hmm
of business people. And like when that blog post comes out, I highly recommend it. It's at the indie, it's at igdnonline.com/blog. I don't know when it's going to be posted, but I thought had some interesting thoughts on like the balance between the business side of things and the passion creative side of things.
yeah,
Because they really do conflict in a lot of ways, at least in my political and economic philosophies. They really do conflict. And the fact that in our society, creativity in this kind of way is only rarely rewarded, um, to the amount, like at a good ratio of the effort that you put into it. Very,
right,
very rarely.
very rarely. It's
Which I don't find sad. I mean it's sad, but I don't find it any more sad than anything else about
about the world
the
that we live
world.
in.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
I don't want to make your podcast very political here, Matt, but that is my whole
I'm
MO.
Yeah, it is your whole MO, and it's fine. I think I don't know that I've tried to stay away from controversy, but also I don't really steer into it either. I don't know. They're more informed and uh, people that can speak on political theory and action oriented things than I can. So um, there's go listen to those shows. That's what those shows are about.
Right, right.
Um, but I mean, I think what comes to mind, like talking about the blog post and stuff like that, it's like the pressure to, if you're doing a hobby, like I said, at least you're not losing. If your goal is to at least not lose money, that's sort of like a definition of success. But then there's such a pressure to monetize your hobby at all, so
Hmm.
that like you can, I was talking to Doug Lewandowski early, like in the video that posted the week before this one will post. But the he was talking about like that's his goal, like that's his definition of success, because he's not trying to like he's got a full-time job and he's gainfully employed, and so like he only wants to like not lose money going to all the conventions
Yeah.
that he wants to go to. That's like his um that's sort of the definition of success. So it's
Hmm.
like but then you're still monetizing your hobby, which is sort of like then it becomes a second job or a third job in some cases, and then it's like, oh no, what have I done now? I need another hobby that to take me away from the thing that was supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
No,
And
it's complex. It is a trap sometimes. I don't think that there's anything wrong with monetizing your hobbies though. I
well, there's
mean,
not something wrong with it, but then if it becomes
right.
if the driver of the sales or whatever it becomes takes the fun out of it, then you've lost something,
Then you
because
lost a
it's
hobby.
yeah,
I
you've
mean,
lost your hobby. Right.
which can be very damaging for a lot
Right.
of us in games. Like games are the hobby you have. It's maybe the only one you have,
Yeah.
because it's so big. But if you kind of poison that well for yourself, that's not the correct use of poison the well, but whatever. If you kind of poison that for yourself and you've driven yourself out of that hobby, you've not only driven yourself out of that hobby that you spent a lot of time on, that you
Yeah.
have probably a social like a whole like friend group around,
Right.
probably maybe your major friends are in that, and then now you have all these negative emotions connected to like, oh, I had this venture, it burnt out, I'm burnt out of games, even thinking about TTRPGs makes me sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to end up in that way. I think
No,
we literally had this conversation on your show. Didn't we talk
I
about
think we,
burnout and
yeah,
avoiding
very
burnout
similar.
on your
Yeah.
show? So
Yeah.
I'll put a if I'm
Yeah, no,
put
put
a,
a pin in this, we can move on.
yeah, I'm going to put a link, like if you want to hear more about that, avoiding burnout.
Yeah.
We literally have had this conversation before.
Yeah, it's a
Um
big one. It's a big one in the industry.
it is. It is. I'm making a note of that right now.
In
Uh
show notes.
yeah, it'll be in the show notes. Yeah, well, you're right. Your links will be there, and this links to the things we talked about might be up there too. Um, okay, so speaking about not burning out and all this kind of stuff, Means of Magic was a really big book, a really big project. You said a year in development, I think at least, like you developing a bit and then you crowdfunded and then you have to like actually make it. And then like, it was
Hmm.
a physical product. So then you had to have it printed and have it shipped and carried around and yeah, all the things, all the things.
Yes.
So I'm
And
not.
there's a life after that too, in terms of distribution and
Oh
everything.
yeah,
So,
of
yeah,
course. That's what I meant by carrying it around. You're carrying it
yeah.
with you to events that you're going to, or having it shipped there, or
Mm.
whatever. It's kind of with you now. I don't know if you literally have like boxes of it under your coffee table or something like that, but like that's a situation. It's a physical presence in your life to some extent
Hmm.
for a long time, probably.
Yeah.
Um, so it's no surprise that you as Wannabe Games, you've done Mork Corp, and then now the Coven of PS13, and you may have done another one in there that I've forgotten, but it's no surprise that you've done some smaller scale projects, like you mentioned.
Hmm.
So is that sort of like just because you can get a smaller project done and out, or is it more about like you just need the rest, right? You need to rest up for the next big one. Like, how do you think of it?
Um, well, I can't take credit for Mort Carp. That was all Alex,
Well,
doing his silly, yeah, but that is under the banner of Wannabe Games,
yeah, yeah.
technically. It's not necessarily that we need a rest. It's that right now this is what is good, and actually it does have a practical reason too, being a member of the IGDN and seeing some of the trends with our conventions. The more new products that we have as an organization, the more new products we have at our convention booth, the better everybody does. So part of that is involved with like, okay, I see what people are buying. I have this zine, I've wanted to expand it for a while as well. Might as well get this done. Yes, there is a little bit of like, we don't want to be spending a whole year working on one project, especially because we have, as you are focusing all of your efforts on one project, you do get like the million other like ideas, these little ideas you want to just like get done. Like, oh, they're so good. They're just itching at me.
I only had
Um,
2 extra months and I could just get that one extra idea done.
right. And then also not every idea needs to be a whole big
Sure.
100 plus pages. Not everything needs that. Um, and also, art is really expensive, and I don't want to do a huge crowdfunding project right now. There's like a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's not just one reason. But for the Coven of PS13 specifically, I made this game as part of a bundle back when I was living in Michigan. That was, just like a little like let's all gather our efforts, make some money off of this bundle of games. It was a mix of tabletop like paper analog games and video games, and it was really fun to make. And after I was done making it, because it was basically like a little game jam that I did, I thought, ooh, I could do a little bit more with this. I could polish this up. I think it has some interesting things that I really enjoyed about. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's raise a little bit of money, get another zine out there, because it's so fun to do. Oh, we did have one other one in there. We had three threads in there, which is
Oh, three
also
threads.
three
Three
threads was
threads.
also another zine we had we had for a long time ago, but it was online only, just like the Coven was. Um, and
So,
I
oh,
wanted to make it look cute, and that's it. So
yeah. So tell me how big was the original then? Like I believe you said it was part of the you said expanding it out. So like, what is the how big was it originally?
it was very short. I did it. I did all of the layout on Google Slides because I had heard that some people were doing layout on Google Slides, and I wanted to see like, oh, what's this like? Even
Uh-huh.
though I had complete access. Well, actually, no, I didn't have access at that time to InDesign. I used to have access to InDesign because I was the newspaper advisor for my old high school, the one I taught at, not me being a student. Um, and during COVID, they took that away from us. They took InDesign away from us, and I said, "Oh no, let me explore." And this was before I downloaded Dfinity, which I stand by. And I was like, "Okay, we'll try it. We'll try out doing a little Google Slides." I don't remember offhand how many slides it was, but like every archetype was one little slide. I had a couple slides for rules, and that was it. And then I like published it as a PDF.
Okay, okay.
Super easy. Super easy to do. I recommend that to anybody who's like getting into a little bit of layout, just like wants to do a short thing. I recommend the Google Slides technique much more than I recommend like a Google Doc. Google Docs sucks for layout. Do not try it. Google Slides at least lets you move pictures around without it ruining your entire text.
Yeah. It's a
And you
good
can,
hack.
yeah, yeah. I found it to be cool. It was fine. Certainly not printable quality, which means that I had to redo layout for this reimagining of Coven. The basic rules are the same as well, but the original game was just, oh, here's your daytime phase, here's your nighttime phase, here are the two types of rituals you can do, the end. Here are your wishes. That's it. And I've expanded the rules a little bit. So number one, they're not broken because they were extremely broken in the original. So the,
Hey,
the
game
rules are
jam.
no
That's
longer
fine. That's
broken.
fine.
Yeah, right. Well, you could accidentally infinite hack the game. If you could accidentally, if you played it a certain way, you could accidentally explode the amount of magic points you had. So I've changed that a little bit so it doesn't get out of hand. And also kind of living a little bit more up to the theme of the original game was very much leaning heavily into the witchy side of things and not so
Hmm.
much in the high school backstabby side of things. And I wanted there to be a better balance between the two.
Okay.
So that those were just some little tweaks I made for the game. It's essentially the same game.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna leave the Coven of P like the original up there as like a
Right.
beta. And in fact, when I made it and I published it on itch, I said, "This is a beta.
Hmm.
I knew even when
You
I
knew you were
published
going
it,
to come
then I was
back
like,
to it.
I'm gonna come back to this because I liked it. I really did.
How
I
many
just
years had ago was that? Like,
oh
how many
gosh,
years has it been like waiting to be revisited?
I think 2021
Okay.
was when I published it first. I don't think it was 2020. Um,
So not like 10 years, like
no.
a small amount of
No, 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 no,
years.
no. No, I
Okay.
have not been doing this for 10 years. There's no way. Um, I mean, I've been writing 4 games for 10 years now. That's kind of silly. No, not even quite 10 years. A little less than 10. Um, yeah, this was itch doesn't tell me.
Oh, when it
Nope.
was posted,
May 8th, 2021.
May 8th, 2021. Okay.
About a
So,
year after we published Moonpunk.
all right. So you have already talked a little bit about like kind of expanded. Do you want to talk about like exactly you're talking about like
Yeah,
the
sure.
rule fixing the rules? Do you want to talk about what the rules are? Like what system does it use? Is it one of your like I know there's the means of magic uses that like dice range system that you that descends from one of your little quirky
Yeah.
compendium games that I've read. Uh well, like, what's the system? How does it play? Like, what's the? Tell me about the mechanics a little bit, and then we'll talk about the theme because I'm sure the I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
sure both things excite you, but I imagine the theme excites you more than the mechanics. But
Yeah. So it does come from one of our quirky little compendium games actually, and it's very similar to Means of Magic. It uses what we're calling the pace die,
yeah, yeah.
where this comes from a game that we made called My Mecha Has Shark Arms. It was this. It was sorry. I'm thinking about this story because it makes me so mad. We were trying to think. We wanted a cooperative. Alex and I wanted a cooperative dice system for this game called My Mecha Has Shark Arms because we wanted it to be like Pacific Rim where you had multiple people, or like Voltron, you had multiple people piloting one giant robot. So like one person, oh, I have shark arms and I'm the
Hmm.
legs of, and Alex said, I'm gonna sleep on it. And normally when someone says I'm gonna sleep on it, they are like using it kind of as a figure of speech. No, he took a nap, and I was there in the room when he was taking a nap. I was doing whatever else. I saw him sleeping. He snored like he was asleep.
Sleep.
And he woke up and he looked at me. He said, I figured it out. He was sleeping the entire time. So he came up with a system where, it's like a blackjack basically. And I'm sure it's not like I'm sure other people have come up with it too, but he did it in his sleep and that makes me mad. Um where you have a limit, you have a set point and everybody else has different dice, in this case, different dice, and they're rolling to try to reach a certain number or not actually try to reach a certain number, hopefully not trying to break that number before something happens. So that's the system that the Coven of PS13 uses.
So then it's like,
Every
is that like sort of the is that like the magic? Like you don't want to
Yeah.
unleash too much magical energy, but like enough. Is that how that gets applied?
Exactly, yeah. So everyone together, everyone has their own dice. The dice themselves represent your hierarchy within the coven and also socially within the high school. So if you have the D20, you are the most popular and the most powerful socially in your group, and also the most magically powerful. They're linked because that's how the game works. If you have a D4, you're the least, However, you kind of you have a little bit more wiggle room when you're rolling a lower dice. So at the
Right.
beginning of a cycle, everybody rolls all of their dice. So however many people you're playing with, so it balances out actually pretty well, no matter how many people you're playing with. If y- it w- it will just kind of balance itself because of everyone rolling to set the limit of the day. And throughout the day, maybe you're using magic and you're drawing from that pool of magical energy that you have for the day, which will make your the ritual for that night more difficult because you'll be closer to that limit. Or maybe you're not, and you're gonna play the long game, and you're gonna try to get a lower die or a higher die because you have more control over the ritual, at night, and you have more social power in the day.
So you're
Um,
trading out die with like a pool of extra dice as you play, and that's kind of like leveling up. Is that
no, you just play with one set of polyhedral dice, so there's only 1d4, there's only
so
1d6,
you're
there's
trading
only
with other
1d8.
players then?
That's right. Mhm.
Okay.
So, let's
I
say
so
Oh, yeah,
then but so that's like
go
the
ahead.
moving in the pecking order then, right?
Right.
Of the
Of the
so
clique, of your
yeah,
coven or
yeah.
your clique.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Excellent.
yeah.
Sounds great. Good idea.
So yeah, you have different options you can take during the day. You can use magic to solve your problems because why wouldn't you you're a witch. Why wouldn't you solve
Right.
your problems with
Right.
magic? Just solve the problem. But to do that, you have to roll your die, which could accidentally make you backlash. If you break the amount of magic for the day, you personally backlash, which will hurt you, and hurt your chances of reaching your overall goal. Um, or you can choose to solve your problem with mundane means. Um, because you can also do that. You are still a human teenage girl. Um, and if you do that though, another witch can do magic for you. Like, why aren't you?
Mm.
Oh, what do you mean you're just gonna talk to your crush?
You have to,
Obviously,
use
like
magical
use
skywriting to
magic. Yeah,
like
come on.
uh
Like do something cool. I'll do it for you.
mm.
Or you can also accept your fate, in which case you slide down the pecking order, things go poorly for you, but you get to contribute magic back to the overall magic of the day for the final ritual. Making you're being a team player and you're hurting yourself by doing it. Or you can also hex another witch by trading dice with them and making them do it instead. Which is a new mechanic. That's a new one that I added in because I wanted a little bit more backstabby-ness in the
Yeah, it
game.
sounds
More play options.
yeah, it sounds very backstabby. So I also wanted to ask you about Jess. I've listened to you. You have several podcasts, and we can link them in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah,
But like, you like media a lot, and you talk
I
about
do.
media. You're sort of like, not sort of, you. I find you to be very media savvy, and you have all these sort of like analysis hats that you'll put on about like, okay, so this film from this point of view is doing this thing. And when like I'm talking about like, they're all going to laugh at him, of course.
Mhm.
So since I know you like media so much, please tell us about some of the media that specifically you're trying to emulate here with this
Yeah.
like pecking order. Like, all that sounds so teen backstabby ness, but like the other part of it is like it's witchy thing, and you don't really have like a witchy vibe. So like, where does the witchy, have I missed it, or is it like, what interests you about that particular, had there's two halves, right? I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I first of all, huge compliment calling me media savvy. I'm gonna ride that compliment for the rest of the week. Kind of comes with the territory. I used to be an English teacher. I was an English major. Although I was technically an English linguistics major, but still, I was an English major. Always loved it. Um, so I do really like to do those analyses. I've called this game The Craft meets Mean Girls. The Craft is what's her name? Faruza Balk. I can't pronounce
That
her name.
sounds familiar.
Okay, maybe it sounds familiar because she was in The Waterboy, and she was the witchy character in The Waterboy, playing off of her role from The Craft.
Hmm.
So anyway, so The
This is
Craft
your, they're all
is
gonna laugh at him knowledge coming out.
yeah, yeah, Adam Sandler, that's that's all I know. Um, so The Craft it's a teen movie, it's a teen drama movie, but instead of just teen girls and their teen problems, they are also witches. So very, very clearly influenced there with
Right.
Coven of PS13. Things do not go well for these witches using their magic in that game because okay, I talk about it in the game a little bit. I'm gonna circle back to that. And then of course Mean Girls, a very much different tone, but in fact a very similar sort of story. They are teen girls who are after some sort of power. They feel powerless in some way. And the way that they get power, the way that you get power as a teen girl, like in reality, is through your social connections.
Right.
I mean, I witnessed that as a teacher. Like there is a lot of social currency
Mm.
that comes to play. And of course, I was a teen girl growing up too. Like this is even being a nerd and not being like one of the quote unquote popular kids, you're still thinking about it. You know, it does still influence you.
You
And
see it happen, certainly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the things will still bother you. You know, you're not a robot.
Uh-huh.
So the the idea here is to kind of play off this idea that like, well, if you are a powerless teen girl, you're in this weird social hierarchy. You're a kid first. You're also a girl, so there's this gender hierarchy issue. Plus, there's all of the the hierarchy within your social groups too. There's a lot of research to be said about the types of bullying that are specific to girl social groups. Um, so there's that. And in the craft, it goes poorly for them because, in my opinion, this is a movie written not necessarily with a girl audience in mind completely. It's not it's like, oh well, if you did truly have power, obviously it's gonna go wrong for you. And the Mean Girls also sort of does that, where things do go wrong when you're chasing that power. But the idea is not just that power is bad or social power is bad. It's the way that you wield the social power. Whereas I think in The Craft, this is my personal interpretation of the movie, the power itself is bad in The
Mm.
Craft. And I thought, look, well, let me combine the two things that I like about these. I love both. I love both of them. I love Mean Girls more. But I think Mean Girls just feels like a little bit more true. And
It
wanted the actual power to be magic power within within everything. So yeah.
I mean, I don't have your uh the power, the same expertise of analysis, but like it's like the craft is like the Crow but for girls, right? Like some executive was like,
Yeah.
we need to make the Crow but for girls, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's because it's like basically the same time period, right? Um,
Yeah, The Craft is 1996. Um, yeah, Fairuza Balk, Nev Campbell's in it. Oh, I forgot that Nev Campbell was in it. I haven't seen it in so long, to
but
be honest.
my point raising the comparison to a different movie from the same decade at least is
Right.
it's what you're saying. It wasn't made as like a teen girl empowerment movie. It was like a what if, I mean, I don't expect,
I
maybe
mean,
it did, but like
it was written by a man and
right.
directed by a man.
Uh-huh. It doesn't seem like that was strongly their motivations, right?
No.
So um it is unsurprising that it goes poorly in the way you describe. Again, that like media literacy stuff, that sort of like, those tropes, right? The, like that the gay character has to die and those kind of things that were tropes in media for decades, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's, oh, the girl gets the power, but it's bad. Um,
I
so
mean, even
how have you
historically
twisted
though,
it? So
like
like before we get too
yeah.
we've got so many we've been invited to go down so many dark roads tonight, but let's try. So how have you, because like is it, I was going to ask when you were talking about it before about the power and getting the power, like, is this a game that's designed like for a play to fail kind of player, like that you want to tell the story of how it goes horribly wrong for these teen girls when they're messing around with dark arts? Is that, or is that, have you removed that completely and it goes well or can go well? Like, what is the tone wise? What have you done differently from these sources?
Specifically, I wanted to leave that open to the players.
Mm.
If you're making a story for players to explore power within a game and then you only give them one path, it's very ironic. So I didn't want that to happen. I wanted, like, yeah, one of the major themes is the exploration of power within a high school system, and within specifically female coded. Although I do say you don't have to be a girl, you could be any gender. But the fact that you want something, you are not, even if you are the student body president, even if you are the head cheerleader, there's something that's missing from you that you're not getting because of a social hierarchy typically. Um, and you have your own goals as your own personal witch, and then you have a coven goal as the whole coven, and they can conflict with each other, and they can conflict with the other witches in the coven, and how you end up exploring that theme, will color your gameplay. Things can go horribly wrong. You can backlash in the final ritual. Things can go terrific for you as well. Everyone can cooperate and work together. So you could play it out completely cooperatively, where everyone is, having a good time and trying to help each other. But even when that happens, maybe you end up rolling too high. You know, lots
Right.
of things could go poorly because just the luck of the dice. So there's that way to explore it. We did everything we could and we still sucked. Or you could all be
But at
very
least we have each other.
backstabby. Yeah, but at least we have each other. Even in the very end, like maybe someone backstabs everybody, like, oh, I know that we said that our coven goal was we're all gonna turn into dragons and we're going to we're gonna fly away from prom. By the way, I just read I just read this amazing book. Okay, I'll tell you about it later. It
But,
has to do with dragons and gender. It's great. Um, and like maybe like at the end, like, oh, I know we all said we were gonna do this, but I've decided no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna mess things up, or I'm at least going to try to for this final ritual, where everyone could be like complete jerks to each other, and everyone's trying to go after their own thing. There's lots of different ways you can play
Yeah.
it
So
out.
it's not necessarily a set story. It's a tool, like, like the
Right,
best RPGs. It's a
right,
toolbox for telling a suite of stories.
right. And it is confined in a lot of ways. The way that I wrote it was designed like with my own high school in mind, like this not super small, but definitely small high school, but small enough where you could kind of like, you not everybody necessarily knows you, but maybe a lot of people do. You're in a town where there's not like a lot going on, but and also kind of like the early mid 2000s. Um, but you can play it in a big high school. I tell you, like, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, it's going to color the way that you do your role play together. Like if you're in 1955 in a giant high school in New York City,
Different
obviously it's going to
different
change
vibe.
things.
Sure.
But maybe that's what you want to explore. I didn't design it to be specific, very specific about the setting and the time period, anything like that. It was beyond
Yeah.
the scope of the game. I didn't want to go into that. I could have, and I
Sure.
restrained myself, and I am proud of myself for doing that. Really, it's just about exploring that specific theme.
Yeah.
And not necessarily railroading somebody into a certain story. So it's
So
replayable as well.
I want to be respectful of your time. We've gone for a little while now. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
sorry.
a couple. No, no, no. It's not. There were no goals of time, and I don't want to. We could talk for a while, but we don't have to. So but I do want to ask you one question before we get to like the wrap up part. So like, maybe this is too big of a question, but like, is this a horror game, or is it like more of a, like I guess that's the question, right? Do you consider this a horror game? Because I've been talking to people who made creepy stuff recently on the channel. So this is like, is this is it creepy? Is it spooky? Is it just sort of like reality? It's a metaphor of reality, or is it like horror? What do you how would you classify it on that kind of like spectrum there?
I'm gonna give you a roundabout answer.
Sure.
Um, do you think that a teenage girl having true power is
Mm,
horrifying, or is that a power fantasy for you? Because the way that you think about having a marginalized group having magical power can change something to be horrifying. And you can certainly play up the horror aspects of it. You can murder your enemies in this game. You can, or you can have fluffy pink rainbow unicorns, I guess, like if you wanted to go with that too. You asked me earlier, like, where's this witchy influence coming from?
oh,
I was in um the spiritual and pagan society in my college. So a lot of like how the rituals work. I mean, it's not like super accurate. It's definitely not like the religious kind of magic that I was, that I was familiar with back in college or anything like that. But a lot of that influenced me. And From the outside world, that's super creepy. Like you get a bunch of kids back in the woods
hmm,
lighting candles and chanting. Oh, that can be a little creepy.
yeah.
But really all we wanted to do was do like a little service to the solstice and then talk about World of Warcraft after, like in reality. So it's really all about perspective.
Mm.
Um, it's really, I mean, for me, if I found out that like 13 of my students were secretly witches and they were doing nightly rituals, I might be a little creeped out.
Well, right. I mean, when you asked me would I consider it a horror game, I'm like, not because they're girls with infinite
Right.
power. It's because they're children who don't know better
Yes.
than to mess everything up.
Yes, exactly.
But then also like, I don't know, like we were talking at the beginning of the interview about like the everything, the soup we live in isn't great. So like, yeah,
Right.
I don't know. That is a fascinating roundabout answer, Jess. So as we move to wrap up this conversation, when will this game be available? Like, and that's not like a, I'm not like mad about it or whatever, but like, yeah, just when is the, just so people can get excited, like, because
Yeah,
it was recently on crowdfunding, and like, when is, it sounds like it's pretty close to done.
it is.
When is it out?
I had all intentions of getting it out in November, but my life and body had other plans.
Hmm.
So it will be out if nothing else terrible happens to me before Christmas. It will be out before then. And you can, at least if you would like to check it out, you can check out the original beta version with
Hey,
all of
that's
its
right.
flaws on it wannabegames.itch.io. That's the right website. You can check it out there.
Yeah, I'll put that link and to the crowdfunding as well in the show notes that we've been discussing this whole time. So let me fill up the show notes some more. So where can
Yeah.
people find more about you? Find you on the internet if they want to discuss 90s movies or 2000s movies, or you could shout out your podcasts. Where do you, where else are you on the internet?
If you want to criticize my pronunciation of Frieza Bulk, or if you want to say like I got the craft wrong and I don't know anything, you can, that the best place to yell at me about that is on Twitter, at least for now. My handle is Jawska, Jawska, but I'm also on Tumblr there. Probably transitioning very shortly out of there for various reasons.
Various
Not out of
reasons.
Tumblr, but out of Twitter.
Hmm.
You can also find, I mean, you can find my contact info at wannabegames.com as well. Or yeah, I mean, those are the best places to find me specifically. And find my games at wannabegames.itch.io or Drive Through RPG.
There you go. That's great. Jess, thank you so much for talking to me today about your
Thank
game and
you.
media, and we talked about, a little bit of politics. Yeah, so it's been great. It's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks everybody for watching this conversation.
Thanks. Bye.